Greetings to you all. Welcome to E-Series English. Hope you have finished writing the first 10 short questions which were discussed in the previous video. Now we are going to discuss the remaining 10 questions and also the paragraphs for toppers and slow bloomers. Are you ready, children? The first question is, who was Mrs. Hudson? Why was she worried? Mrs. Hudson was the landlady of Sherlock Holmes. She was worried about his illness because Holmes did not take food or drink for 3 days. Why didn't Holmes let Watson examine him? Holmes pretended that he did not have confidence in Dr. Watson, so he didn't let Watson examine him. Why did Holmes warn Watson against touching his things? What was Watson's reaction? Holmes did not like anyone touching his things, so he warned Watson against touching his things. Eventually, Watson sat. What did Watson find on the table near the mantelpiece? Watson found a small black and white ivory box with a sliding lid on the table near the mantelpiece. Who is Mr. Culverton Smith? Mr. Culverton Smith is a planter. He lives in Sumatra Island. He is the culprit. He killed his nephew Victor Savage in order to retain the property. What did Holmes ask Watson to do before leaving his room? Holmes asked Watson to place some letters and paper on the table within his reach. He asked to place the ivory box and slide the lid a bit with the tongs. He asked Watson to light the lamp and leave it off on. What instructions did Holmes give Watson to get Mr. Smith? Holmes asked Watson to tell Smith that Holmes was dying and to persuade Smith to come. Watson should return before the arrival of Smith. Why did Holmes want Smith to treat him? Holmes thought that Smith was the only man in London who knew well about the deadly disease, so he wanted Smith to treat him. According to Smith, how did Holmes get the disease? Smith thought that Holmes got the contagious disease by touching the poison sharp spring kept inside the ivory box, which he had sent to Holmes by post. Who arrested Smith? What were the charges against him? Inspector Martin arrested Smith. He arrested Smith on the charges of murdering his nephew Victor Savage and his attempt to kill Holmes in the same way. Next, the paragraph question, which would be asked in part 3, section 1, in question number 29, 30, 31 and 32. 4 questions will be there. You have to select any 2. How did Holmes trap Mr. Culverton Smith to confess the murder? How did Watson help his friend to arrest the criminal? எந்த மாதிரினாலும் கொஸ்டின் கேட்டாலும் நீங்கள் இதை எழுதலாம். Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a British writer best known for his detective character Sherlock Holmes. The story is narrated by Watson, a friend of Holmes. Holmes was a famous detective in London. Once Holmes pretended as if he were infected with Topolny fever or black Formosa plague, a deadly disease from Sumatra. He didn't take food or drink for 3 days, so he was listless. Dr. Watson wanted to treat his illness, but Holmes did not want Watson to know that he was not ill. He pretended to be ill just to get Smith there. He sent Watson to get Culverton Smith for treating his illness. Holmes instructed Watson to tell Smith exactly how he was suffering from the illness. Watson had to persuade Smith to come and meet Holmes. Mr. Culverton Smith was a planter from Sumatra. He was the culprit. He had killed his nephew in order to usurp the property. He came to visit London in order to know the consequences of his plot of killing Holmes. But Holmes wanted Smith's confession for his crime of murdering nephew Victor. In order to capture Smith, Holmes pretended to be ill. While Holmes and Smith were discussing, Watson overheard them from the next room. As they were discussing, Smith confessed that he had killed his nephew Victor and also sent as an infected ivory box to kill Holmes in the same way. Holmes asked Smith to turn up the gas light, which was a signal for Inspector Martin. He came in and arrested Smith for his crime. So, from this story, you can learn the moral that don't believe everything you see. நம்ம பார்க்குறதெல்லாம் எல்லாரும் நல்லவங்களாக இருப்பாங்கன்னு நம்பிடக்கூடாது. This is the paragraph for slow learners. Sherlock Holmes was a famous detective in London. Dr. Watson was his friend. Holmes pretended to be ill. He sent Watson to get Mr. Culverton Smith. Smith was the murderer who killed his nephew Victor. To capture Smith, Holmes pretended. Smith confessed his crime. He admitted that he had tried to kill Holmes in the same way. At last, Smith was arrested by Inspector Martin. So, hope you could easily take down the notes in your notebook. If you like this video, please share it with your friends, comment and subscribe our channel. Thank you for watching.